Drake is done for. Universal Music Group just legally destroyed him in federal court, while Kendrick Lamar turned the Super Bowl into a public execution. The Weeknd, like the meme of Drake crying, a female ghostwriter got caught on tape. His own team is bribing Twitch streamers with Bentleys to delete evidence. This is the complete deletion. Everybody thought the Kendrick versus Drake battle was over. Drake took his L, went quiet, and people moved on. That was the story everyone accepted. But what's happening right now is beyond the loss. This is systematic annihilation. His own record label humiliated him in court documents. His former best friend weaponized a single like button into a public beheading. A 2-year-old studio leak just resurfaced, showing a woman rapping his verse before he ever released it. And Drake's manager got exposed, sending DMs offering luxury cars in exchange for silence. The whole narrative is twisting because this isn't just about losing anymore. This is about being erased from history while the world watches in real time. Let me break down exactly what happened, because every single piece of this puzzle is absolutely insane. First, Universal Music Group, Drake's own label, the company that made billions off his music, filed court documents in response to Drake's defamation lawsuit. And they didn't just dismiss it, they ritually humiliated him. The legal language was cold, clinical, and absolutely devastating. They essentially told the court that Drake has no case, that Kendrick's diss tracks are protected artistic expression, and that Drake's claims hold no weight. Think about that. Your own label, the people who profit off every stream, every album, every tour, they sided with your enemy in federal court documents that are now public record forever. But it gets even crazier. While that court filing was going public, Kendrick Lamar was headlining the Super Bowl halftime show, not just performing, dominating. He turned the world's biggest stage into a live execution of Drake's legacy. He performed Not Like Us 5 times. 5 times! And during the performance, Serena Williams, one of the most respected athletes on the planet, was filmed dancing and vibing to the exact song that includes the line "Certified Pedophile" aimed directly at Drake. The entire stadium, millions watching at home, all chanting along. TMZ cameras caught every second. Fans online started calling it a public seance because it felt like Kendrick was summoning Drake's ghost while he's still alive. And for anyone who doesn't know, the Super Bowl halftime show is the most watched musical event in the world. Over 100 million people tuned in. That's not a rap battle anymore. That's cultural warfare broadcasted to the planet. Drake wasn't just losing, he was being deleted in front of everybody. But it gets even crazier. While that court filing was going public, Kendrick Lamar was headlining the Super Bowl halftime show. Not just performing, dominating. He turned the world's biggest stage into a live execution of Drake's legacy. He performed Not Like Us 5 times. 5 times. And during the performance, Serena Williams, one of the most respected athletes on the planet, was filmed dancing and vibing to the exact song that includes the line "Certified Pedophile" aimed directly at Drake. The entire stadium, millions watching at home, all chanting along. TMZ cameras caught every second. Fans online started calling it a public seance because it felt like Kendrick was summoning Drake's ghost while he's still alive. And for anyone who doesn't know, the Super Bowl halftime show is the most watched musical event in the world. Over 100 million people tuned in. That's not a rap battle anymore. That's cultural warfare broadcasted to the planet. Drake wasn't just losing, he was being deleted in front of everybody. But it gets worse. The Weeknd, Abel Tesfaye, Drake's former Toronto brother, the guy Drake helped put on early in his career, entered the chat. And he didn't say a single word. He didn't have to. He hunted down a Drake fan page on Instagram, found a meme of Drake with tears photoshopped onto his face, and smashed the like button. That's it. 1 like, but that like detonated social media. Within hours, it was trending worldwide. Fans were screaming, "Abel chose violence with a like button." The Weeknd knows exactly what he's doing. He's been silent on the Drake and Kendrick situation this entire time. No interviews, no tweets, no subliminal songs, just silence. Until that 1 like, and that silence turned into the loudest statement of all. It proved revenge doesn't need words, it just needs perfect timing.
Now, this whole situation gets even crazier when you realize a studio leak from 2 years ago just resurfaced and went nuclear. A video from 2022 shows a woman in a recording booth rapping every single syllable of Drake's final verse on his song Sticky off his latest album. Crystal clear, word for word, flow identical, and this footage is dated years before the song officially dropped. The caption on the viral repost said, "So we just gonna pretend Drake wrote this?" And the internet lost its mind. 2.3 million views in 14 hours. Comment sections absolutely flooded with people saying profound writers don't need ghostwriters, and this is why Kendrick called him a fabricated artist. Fans online turned into investigators. They started studying the woman's voice, comparing vocal patterns, analyzing the cadence. Online detectives found her engineer tag in the background of the video and tracked her to a studio in Atlanta that Drake's team has used multiple times. They're slowing down frames, zooming in on session details visible on the computer screen in the reflection of the glass booth. And folks online swear this is the smoking gun that destroys any argument that Drake is a real writer. Whether it's true or not, the narrative is set. The damage is done. That video is now attached to Drake's name forever. And then there's the Twitch situation. Then the Don, a streamer who received a $200,000 Bentley from Drake's team after covering his music positively, accidentally exposed a DM. The message was from someone identified as part of Drake's management team, and it said, "Keep the Bentley, just don't mention the streams or the crying or Kendrick. We'll send the next gift next week." The DM was visible on screen for maybe 30 seconds before Ben panicked and deleted it, but screen recordings spread like wildfire. Fans archived everything. Reddit threads exploded with people calling it a real-time cover-up, proof that Drake's camp is laundering silence with luxury cars, bribing influencers to control the narrative while he's having a public breakdown behind the scenes. Now let's get into the motive, because this is where everything starts clicking into place and the psychology behind all of this becomes crystal clear. Drake has been the king of hip-hop for over a decade. He dominated the charts, broke streaming records, sold out arenas worldwide, and controlled the narrative. But that empire started cracking the moment Kendrick Lamar released Euphoria and Not Like Us. Those weren't just diss tracks, they were surgical strikes designed to dismantle everything Drake built. Kendrick didn't just attack his music, he attacked his identity, his authenticity, his character, and his place in hip-hop history. Think about it. Drake went from being untouchable to being the punchline of every meme, every comment section, every group chat. His streaming numbers are still massive, but the respect is gone. And in hip-hop, respect is everything. You could have all the money in the world, but if the culture doesn't respect you, you're finished. And that's exactly what happened. Kendrick turned the entire culture against Drake, and once the culture turns, there's no coming back. But here's where it gets even deeper. Drake's whole brand was built on being the guy who always wins, the guy who turns beefs into hits, the guy who stays on top no matter what. That's the image he sold for 15 years. So when Kendrick dismantled him publicly and Drake had no real response, that image shattered. And for someone whose entire identity is tied to being the best, that kind of psychological collapse hits different. That's not just losing a rap battle, that's losing yourself. And it gets worse for him. Lil Wayne, the man who mentored Drake, the legend who signed him to Young Money and called him his son, has been completely silent throughout this entire situation. Fans started digging up old interviews, and one quote from Lil Wayne back in 2016 resurfaced. He said, "Jail changes you. You find out who really holds you down." People started connecting that to Kendrick's disses about loyalty and fake relationships, and now fans are speculating that even Wayne doesn't have Drake's back anymore. Whether that's true or not, the perception is there, and in this game, perception is reality. Meanwhile, Drake's Twitter archive is being systematically incinerated. Dozens of old tweets have disappeared. Fans noticed that specific tweets where Drake was bragging, talking reckless, or being overly confident are now just gone. One of the most infamous ones that vanished was when he called himself light-skinned Keith Sweat in a cocky flex. People are calling it a digital bonfire of past arrogance. He's trying to erase the receipts, but the internet never forgets. Screenshots exist, archives exist, and every deleted tweet just makes him look more desperate. Put all that together, and it looks like the perfect recipe for a complete mental breakdown. You've got the culture turning on you, your label humiliating you in court, your former friend publicly mocking you, ghostwriting accusations resurfacing, bribery scandals leaking, your mentor staying silent, and you're deleting your own history in real time. That's not just damage control. That's a man watching his legacy collapse and scrambling to stop the bleeding. But the bleeding won't stop because the internet is relentless, and once the narrative shifts, there's no reversing it. And here's the thing people don't talk about enough. Drake's whole career was built on being relatable, being the guy who talks about his feelings, the guy who's vulnerable. But that vulnerability was always calculated. It was a brand strategy. It made him accessible to fans who felt like they knew him personally. But now that same vulnerability is being weaponized against him. The crying, the desperation, the need for validation. Kendrick used all of that and turned it into ammunition. He exposed Drake's insecurity as weakness, and now the whole world sees it. Twitch insiders are whispering that Drake's team is planning a final explanation stream for this weekend. No games, no guests, just Drake and the music. A raw, unfiltered moment where he addresses everything. But here's the problem. Kendrick's team reportedly already has people inside the chat preparing a live interruption that could shatter the internet mid-sentence. Imagine Drake finally opening up, trying to reclaim his narrative, and getting ambushed live in front of hundreds of thousands of people. That's psychological warfare at its most brutal.
But here's the part that really hits different, and honestly makes this whole situation feel darker than just entertainment industry drama. The people getting caught in the middle of all this chaos aren't the celebrities with millions of dollars and legal teams. It's the fans, the content creators, the everyday people who built their platforms around supporting Drake and now feel completely betrayed and manipulated. Ben the Don, the Twitch streamer who got the Bentley, is reportedly dealing with serious harassment. His community turned on him. People are calling him a sellout, a shill, and a liar. His subscriber count dropped. Sponsors pulled out. And why? Because he accepted a gift he thought was genuine appreciation, not realizing it was part of a coordinated strategy to silence criticism. That's somebody's livelihood getting destroyed because they got used as a pawn in a psychological war between billionaires. And think about the smaller fan pages, the people who dedicated years to posting Drake content, defending him in comment sections, creating memes and edits, and building communities around his music. They're watching their favorite artists get exposed as someone who possibly bribes influencers, uses ghostwriters, and manipulates narratives. That's not just disappointing, that's heartbreaking. These are real people who emotionally invested in an image that's now crumbling in real time. The leaked footage of the woman rapping Drake's verse isn't just about ghostwriting, it's about trust. Fans believed they were connecting with an artist's authentic voice, and now they're questioning if anything they loved was even real. That feeling of betrayal cuts deep. It's why comment sections are filled with people saying, "I feel so stupid for defending him, and I can't even listen to his music the same way anymore." That's genuine pain. That's not just internet drama, that's emotional investment being shattered. And let's keep it real. Drake's situation is tragic because you can see a man unraveling publicly. Whether you think he deserves it or not, watching someone lose everything they built, watching them get mocked by millions, watching their own team turn on them, that's heavy. That's a human being going through something unimaginable, and the whole world is treating it like entertainment. The memes are funny until you remember there's a real person on the other side of the screen reading every single comment, seeing every single laugh at their expense, feeling the weight of being the world's punching bag. Let's keep digging, because there are even more layers to this situation that people are just now starting to uncover. And honestly, the deeper you go, the more insane it gets. So the Universal Music Group court filing wasn't just a standard legal response. People who actually read the full document started pointing out specific language that felt intentionally disrespectful.
One section reportedly described Drake's claims as lacking substantial merit and credibility, which in legal terms is basically calling someone a liar in the most professional way possible. Another section referenced Kendrick Lamar's artistic achievements and cultural impact in a way that felt like UMG was actively praising Kendrick while defending him against Drake. That's not neutral legal language, that's picking a side. Fans started comparing this to how UMG handled other artist disputes in the past, and this response to Drake stands out as unusually harsh. When Taylor Swift had issues with her former label, the language was diplomatic. When Kanye had public disputes, the statements were carefully worded to avoid taking sides. But with Drake, it's like UMG saw an opportunity to distance themselves from him completely. And that sends a message to the entire industry. Drake is no longer protected. He's open season. Now let's talk about the Super Bowl performance again, because new details keep emerging that make it even more deliberate. Kendrick didn't just perform Not Like Us multiple times. He specifically structured the setlist to build toward that song as the climax. He opened with older hits to establish his legacy, then transitioned into his newer material to show his evolution, and then ended with the Drake diss as the final statement. That's not random. That's narrative construction. He turned the performance into a visual essay on why he's the superior artist. And here's something people missed. During one of the Not Like Us performances, the stage production included visual effects that some fans swear spelled out OVO upside down. OVO is Drake's label, October's very own. Whether that was intentional or coincidental, the internet ran with it. Graphic designers started analyzing the footage frame by frame, and some swear they can see it clear as day. True or not, it became part of the story. It became another piece of evidence that Kendrick was sending subliminal shots even in the stage design. The Weeknd's Instagram activity didn't stop with just that one like. People started going through his recent activity and noticed he's been strategically liking posts from artists who are affiliated with Kendrick or who have been critical of Drake in the past. He liked a post from SZA. He liked a post from Baby Keem, Kendrick's cousin. He even liked a post from a music journalist who wrote an article titled Why Kendrick Won. None of these are explicit statements, but together they paint a picture. Abel is making it very clear whose side he's on without ever saying a word, and that's more powerful than any diss track he could release because it's cold, calculated, and permanent. The Ghostwriter situation has evolved into a full-blown investigation by fans online. People found the woman's social media accounts. They discovered she's a legitimate songwriter with credits on other major projects. They found interviews where she talks about working with unnamed top-tier artists and writing verses that never got credited to her. None of this proves definitively that she wrote Drake's verse, but the circumstantial evidence keeps piling up, and in the court of public opinion, circumstantial evidence is enough. One detail that's particularly damning, the song Sticky was released in 2024, but the leaked footage is timestamped 2022. That's a 2-year gap. Fans are asking, if Drake wrote that verse himself, why does a recording of someone else rapping it word for word exist 2 years before release? The only logical explanations are either she wrote it for him or he somehow stole it from her. Neither option is good for Drake's credibility as a writer. And then there's the Bentley bribery scandal, which has now expanded beyond just Ben the Don. More streamers are coming forward anonymously saying they've also received gifts, sponsorships, or payments from teams affiliated with Drake's camp in exchange for positive coverage or staying quiet on certain topics. One anonymous streamer told a hip-hop news outlet that they were offered $10,000 to avoid discussing the Kendrick situation negatively and to keep the focus on the music. That's not marketing. That's narrative control. That's buying silence. Meanwhile, there are side stories emerging that add even more context to how bad things have gotten for Drake. And honestly, some of these details are just as wild as the main narrative itself. For example, people notice that Drake hasn't posted on Instagram in over 2 weeks. For someone who used to post almost daily, that silence is deafening. Fans are speculating he's either been advised by his legal team to stay offline or he's genuinely too mentally drained to engage with social media. Either way, the absence speaks volumes. His Spotify numbers are still high, but there's been a noticeable shift. Playlists that used to feature Drake heavily are now prioritizing Kendrick. Rap Caviar, one of the biggest hip-hop playlists on the platform, had Kendrick's Not Like Us as the #1 song for weeks, while Drake's latest singles barely cracked the top 10 on the same playlist. That's not just algorithm changes, that's editorial decisions being made by streaming platforms that reflect cultural sentiment. There's also been talk about Drake's upcoming album being delayed. Insiders claim the label isn't confident in releasing new music while the public perception is this negative. One unnamed source reportedly told a music blog that dropping an album right now would be commercial suicide and that the team is waiting for the heat to die down. But here's the problem. The heat ain't dying down, it's intensifying. Every day there's a new leak, a new revelation, a new meme. Waiting might actually make things worse because the silence allows the negative narrative to solidify even further. And let's talk about the broader hip-hop community's reaction, because that's been telling as well. Very few major artists have publicly defended Drake. A few people posted vague, supportive messages early on, but as more information came out, even those people went quiet. Compare that to how artists rallied around Kendrick. J. Cole apologized for even being involved in the beef. Jay-Z gave Kendrick a public cosign. Dr. Dre praised his artistry. The industry has clearly chosen a side, and is not Drake's side. There's also the business side of things. Endorsement deals are reportedly being reevaluated. Brands that had Drake as the face of their campaigns are quietly distancing themselves. No official announcements, but marketing materials featuring him are being replaced or phased out. That's millions of dollars in potential revenue disappearing because companies don't want to be associated with someone whose reputation is collapsing in real time. And here's something that doesn't get talked about enough. Drake's influence on younger artists is fading. Up-and-coming rappers used to cite him as an inspiration constantly. Now they're all talking about Kendrick. They're studying Kendrick's pen game, his approach to storytelling, his cultural impact. Drake is being erased from the mentorship conversation. And in a genre where legacy is everything, that's catastrophic. Fans have also started creating documentary-style YouTube videos breaking down the entire timeline of Drake's downfall. Some of these videos are over an hour long, with detailed analysis, receipts, and commentary. They're getting millions of views. The narrative is being written in real time, and it's not favorable. Future generations will look back at this moment as the turning point where Drake went from king to cautionary tale.
What we're seeing here is bigger than just Drake losing a rap battle. This is about how fame, ego, and the internet collide in the most destructive ways possible. The bigger conversation is about authenticity in an industry built on image. Drake's entire brand was constructed on being relatable, being the underdog who made it, being the guy who wears his heart on his sleeve. But when that image gets exposed as manufactured, when the authenticity gets questioned, the foundation crumbles instantly. And this is a warning for anybody with a massive platform who's built their success on a specific persona. The moment that persona cracks, the moment people start questioning if it was ever real, the fall is brutal and fast. There's no coming back from a credibility collapse. You can survive scandals, you can survive bad albums, but you can't survive being called fake in a genre that values realness above everything else. The internet has also fundamentally changed how these situations unfold. 20 years ago, a rapper could take an L, disappear for a while, and come back with a new album that shifts the narrative. But now, there's no escape. Every moment is documented, every mistake is archived, every attempt at damage control gets analyzed and memed into oblivion. Drake can't hide. He can't rebrand. He's stuck in a digital prison where millions of people are watching his every move, waiting for him to slip again. And let's talk about the psychological toll of that. Imagine being one of the most famous people on the planet and knowing that every single day, millions of people are actively rooting for your downfall. That's not normal human experience. That's a level of public scrutiny that breaks people. And we're watching it happen in real time. The tweets, the streams, the silence, it all points to someone who's mentally struggling to process the magnitude of what's happening to them. This situation also raises questions about the music industry's responsibility. Should labels step in when one of their artists is clearly going through a public breakdown? Or is it all just business? UMG's decision to side against Drake in court suggests it's purely business. They're protecting their bottom line and their relationship with Kendrick, who's arguably more culturally valuable right now. That's cold, but that's capitalism. Artists are products, and when a product's brand is damaged, companies cut their losses. So where does Drake go from here? That's the question everyone's asking, and honestly, there's no clear answer, because every possible move feels like a trap. If he responds aggressively, he looks desperate. If he stays silent, he looks defeated. If he drops music, it'll get overanalyzed and torn apart. If he does interviews, he'll get grilled with uncomfortable questions. There's no winning move left on the board. Some fans think he should fully retire from rap and transition into business ventures. He's already successful with OVO clothing, his whiskey brand, and various investments. Maybe stepping away from music entirely and focusing on being a mogul is the only path forward. But that feels like admitting defeat. That feels like letting Kendrick win completely. And for someone with Drake's ego, that might be impossible to accept. Others think he should pull a complete rebrand. Change his sound, change his image, acknowledge his mistakes, and come back as a different version of himself. But rebrands are risky. Ask any artist who's tried to reinvent themselves after a major controversy. The public is skeptical. They don't forget, and they don't forgive easily. There's also speculation that more information is coming. People are saying there are additional leaks waiting to drop. More DMs, more footage, more evidence of things Drake's team tried to bury. If that's true, then what we've seen so far is just the beginning. The collapse could get so much worse, and every new revelation makes a comeback less and less possible. The saddest part is that Drake's musical legacy, which should be celebrated, is now forever tied to this moment. When people talk about his career in the future, they won't just talk about the hits and the records he broke. They'll talk about how Kendrick destroyed him. They'll talk about the ghostwriting allegations. They'll talk about the bribery. They'll talk about the Super Bowl. All of that becomes part of the story, whether he likes it or not. And maybe that's the real tragedy here. A genuinely talented artist who changed the sound of hip-hop, who influenced an entire generation, who created countless hits that people still love, is going to be remembered most for his downfall. That's legacy assassination. That's what happens when you lose control of your narrative in the internet age. Your accomplishments get overshadowed by your lowest moments, because those are the moments that go viral. Stay locked in, because this story is far from over. More details are dropping every single day. More evidence is surfacing. More insiders are speaking out. And reports say Drake's team is planning something big. Whether it's that Twitch stream, a surprise album drop, or a full media tour addressing everything. But whatever it is, you already know Kendrick's camp is ready. They've been 3 steps ahead this entire time, and there's no reason to think that's going to change. So here's what I want to know from you. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Drake can recover from this? Is there any possible move he can make that saves his legacy? Or is this the end of his reign as one of hip-hop's biggest names? And honestly, do you think he even deserves sympathy at this point? Or is this karma for years of industry politics and alleged manipulation? And what about Kendrick? Is he the greatest strategist hip-hop has ever seen? Or did Drake just make it too easy by being messy and unprepared? Is this the most one-sided destruction in rap beef history, or has there been worse? I want to hear every take, every theory, every perspective you've got, because this is the kind of situation where everyone has an opinion, and they're all valid in their own way. Make sure you like this video if you made it this far, because we went deep on this one. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss a single update, because I promise you, this situation is going to keep evolving, and we're going to be covering every single twist, every leak, every response as it happens. This is history being written in real time, and you're going to want to be here for all of it. I appreciate every single one of you for rocking with me and giving this video your time. I'll see you in the next one. And remember, the internet never forgets, so protect your legacy while you still can. Stay safe out there.